Good morning, students and staff. This morning we're broadcasting from my conference room. So I have a display up for Martin Luther King Day, which was yesterday. Before we get to that, a few announcements. Our Honors Improvement Breakfast is tomorrow morning for 4th and 5th graders, and you should have got an email inviting you to that. And also this Friday, that's for the the second grading period. If you either improved your grades or made the honor roll for the second grading period, you were invited to the breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Hope you can make it. And this Friday is also our first semester honor roll convo. That's for all the students in 4th and 5th grade that made the semester honor roll. That's both grading periods. You made the honor roll. And again, you should have gotten an invitation for that as well for this Friday at 1 o'clock. Also, if you had perfect attendance last grading period, you'll be getting a letter letting you know what your awards are for that. That should be coming sometime this week. If you remember, this Thursday and Friday are the auditions for our talent show coming up in February. So this Thursday and Friday after school, you should have signed up for a time and the sign-up sheet by Mrs. Wade's room. So if you haven't done that, make sure you do that as well as fill out the form that goes with it. Good News Club, your big event is after school this Thursday in the large group room. Come see our story shoes and make and take home a surprise and hear more on creation. Cheer camp starts after school today. And 5th grade, you're doing the recycling this Wednesday. Now, as I said, yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. And so I'm just going to get the camera and zoom in here. And it's abbreviated MLK, so every time you see that, it's not milk, it's actually Martin Luther King. And his birthday was actually on January 15th, but because now it's a federal holiday, we always celebrate it on the third Monday in January. So Martin Luther King was a civil rights leader, and back in the 60s especially, there's some unfair laws and that separated blacks and whites. So as you can see there, they had public swimming pools that were for white people only, and they had separate schools for white people only, and basically kept black people in separate facilities and kept them separate. They even had separate drinking fountains for whites and blacks. And when jobs were posted, sometimes they'd say, hey, we only want white people only. Well, Martin Luther King thought that was wrong, and so he organized big protests. And this one was in Washington, D.C. that drew over 500,000 people, and he gave his famous I Have a Dream speech, which convinced the people in power, the congressmen especially, to pass laws that would change that. And today we see that many of his goals have been accomplished, and people of all race are treated equally under the law. We still have racism, we still have a ways to go, but we even elected a black man, Barack Obama, to be our 44th president of the United States. And that would have been unthinkable back in the 60s when Martin Luther King was fighting for change. He was shot and killed on April 4th, 1968. That's over 60 years ago by someone that did not like the changes he was fighting for. And in August of 2011, a statue called the Stone of Hope Monument was erected in Washington, D.C. in his honor. And you can see that's the statue there. It has one of his famous quotes engraved on it, which is, "With this faith we will be able to hew out of this mountain of despair a stone of hope." And his birthday was also made a national holiday in 1986. So in your classes this week, you'll be learning more about Dr. King and why we celebrate his life as an example of someone who is able to bring about change for the better for our country. And let's do our part to see that we treat all people with fairness and kindness. This morning, we also have a student from Mrs. Krieger's class, Brooke Campbell, who's going to be reading an essay that she wrote about Dr. King and his I Have a Dream speech.
I have a dream that one day the earth and its water supply will be clean, that fish won't die because they get stuck in the plastic people throw into the oceans, lakes, and ponds. If everyone keeps littering and hurting the sea creatures, then we would lose ocean life and many animals could become extinct. Littering can also affect land animals. Land animals can still suffocate from litter by getting stuck in it just like sea creatures. From the streets of Chicago, the coast of California, and the mountains of Tennessee, I have a dream that people will stop littering. If the people in this world could work together to pick up trash and recycle, we could all have a nicer, cleaner, and healthier world. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. It's good to have a dream because that's how change starts, just like with Martin Luther King. Thanks, and have a great week.